Hi, everyone, and welcome to the special simulcast, the Neil Haley Show and the Ultimate Men's Movement with our host, Dr. Jack Rocco. Dr. Jack, we're going to talk testosterone today, and I love that conversation because I absolutely believe doing what I have done with testosterone replacement therapy is one of the best things I've ever done because no longer I'm never on caffeine anymore. I don't need coffee. I have the energy galore, and I also have the real energy to just grind it out as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, Neil. Not that you're not special because we all know that you are, but it's I hear the same story over and over and over again. I had a consult with a guy this morning, and 37, drives a truck delivery, so he's sitting a lot during the day. He says he's 37 and he just feels horrible. He says, I don't know if I can make it to 50. He goes, at 37, you should be peaking at that point. We got his blood work back. It was 140. Once again, 37-year-old should not have a testosterone level of 140, but he was seen by his primary care physician. They have a different range. The lab he was using, the range was different, but he was within the normal range from his primary care physician.
Mm.
And like I said, their reference range was significantly below ours.
I've always been in that same reference range that it's average, which is horrid. It's not what I want.
Yeah, well, it's not average for, the number they give you is it's just a mass accumulation of what they're finding. It's the average of what they're finding amongst all ages. So it's not adjusted for your age. It's not adjusted for your what your natural level should be. We're not going to have a level on this guy from when he was in his 20s or, early 30s. But so his doctor keeps saying, well, you're in the normal range. You're in the normal range. You don't need anything. Let's check it again in 6 months. His nurse practitioner sees him. They're not seeing physicians. And, he's gaining weight. He says he's up, he's 5'8". He's up over 200 pounds. He's 30 pounds higher than what he was in 30, 40 pounds higher than what he was in high school or college ages. So he's gaining the belly fat. And the guy, like, I really felt for him because he's just struggling. He's like, Doc, I'm eating well. I'm trying to go organic. I'm trying to eat well. I'm going with turkey. Like, he's really watching himself, and he's going to the gym. He goes, I've been going to the gym and I'm just not gaining muscle. I'm not, and with a level that low, of course he's not going to gain muscle, and a lot of these people, they put I think men do that. They put the blame on themselves. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Well, you're not doing anything wrong. You're eating the crap food that's out there, in the world. You're eating fast food. I mean, the American diet is absolutely horrible. And the guy keeps blaming himself, blaming himself, blaming himself. And now he's getting depressed. He goes, yeah. He goes, I don't feel it. The bedroom's not what it used to be. I'm not waking up with that morning wood anymore. Everything that he was saying, like I said, I hate to, make this sound like, routine, because each person is individual and each person is worried about what's going on with themselves. But I hear the same thing over and over again. Guys blaming themselves, guys getting depressed. They're not, he goes, my kids are 9 and 15 and I can't even play with my kids. He goes, I'm out there, I get fatigued, I get worn down. And, I mean, it makes me excited that we can help this guy. And, when you see him before and after, and across the board, the guys who've been on it. And you were saying, go ahead, tell your story about how you've been on it now for
It's
nine.
it'll be 9 months. I think we're in the fourth cycle of this, and
Yeah, the
each
fourth.
one of them has been a journey. Right. At first, I was a big intermittent faster. Sure as heck, I'm not now. And I mean, I eat when I eat, but I also eat more, and I also burn more. So if I don't eat enough, it's not good for me. So
Hmm.
I was hungry, hungry, hungry the first level, eating, like and thinking, oh, nothing. And I did gain some weight, but I was putting some size on too. But then I said, okay, I don't need to eat at certain times and certain things, but my energy level was the biggest thing I saw the biggest change. Is the okay, I
Hmm.
am I decided to cut coffee out like 2 months later. And I've cut mostly caffeine out of my diet, and it's been one of the best things possible. But my energy, my brain energy too. I think they don't do enough research on the brain health, the ability that I'm able to be a mad scientist even more than I was before, and my ability also to just have more clarity at times on specific things.
Yeah.
That's testosterone, but also feeling young. When someone says, "Oh, I'm old," I don't think I'm freaking old at all. I'm like,
No.
okay,
Yeah, I told that
that's
guy,
gone. I
yeah,
mean,
I'm knocking on 60 this year. I'll be hitting 60 soon, which blows my mind. And I'm feeling bad for this guy. But then I remember back to my, when my kids were his age, and
me too.
I was, I was 20 pounds heavier than I am now. Um, you go through the motions, but you're just not there. You're a hollowed out zombie in a lot of ways that, you're cranky, you're
Right.
moody, don't bother me. And now I'm much more alert. I call it the mojo. How do you explain that? How do you explain that mojo, that male feeling of I'm clicking?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Then I'm always like, just motivated to go and get things done. And it doesn't seem like anything to me. You're right. Like the energy, the just be a man. That's what
Yeah,
testosterone ends up becoming. And
right.
I look at my time in my 30s and 40s. I look younger now. And that's the
Yeah,
craziness, right? Except maybe a little bit of gray hair, but that's you can't stop that yet. But someday we'll figure that out, right?
yeah, right.
But just your longevity, your ability to focus and mood, really keep a more of a stable mood with testosterone. I don't know all the different things, but I know for us.
Yeah, no, you're hitting it. And like I said, with this guy, there's the things that he's noticing, and like he's telling me all these noticeable things. But especially at 37, the things that you don't notice are your bone mass. That your bone mass is deteriorating, that your coronary arteries are becoming more clogged. That the studies have shown that guys with low T had a higher rate of coronary artery disease. They had a higher rate of bone weakness, fragility, fractures. And we've talked to this a number of times. And that's what I've seen my whole life. These guys that are coming in early, you break a hip. For a man to break a hip, men have a higher bone density, they have more muscle mass, and women get the fragility fractures from estrogen deficiency. So the male to female or female to male ratio of hip fractures is about 3 to 1. So for every third woman that I'm fixing a hip on, I'm fixing a man. So but that man to have a fragility fracture is much more unhealthy. So that's, if you break a hip, your mortality, and not just your mortality rate, the death rate is high from a hip fracture in everyone, and the morbidity, that you're going to decline a level or two in your ambulatory status. You can't walk like you used to. You go to a cane, you go to a walker, you go to a wheelchair. So it's hugely detrimental. But at that point, I'm seeing the end stage. I'm seeing the guys who've been low T, poor health, smokers, drinkers, et cetera, for years, for decades. And it's a tough rehab, but it's a sign that you've been unhealthy for a long time if you're a man with a hip fracture. So, the
Yeah.
fact that I'm seeing this guy at 37, I'm like, dude, the things you're telling me are one thing, but your weight is going up, your belly fat is going up, the visceral fat is horrible. So to get him at 37, I mean, he's young for experiencing this, but it's ubiquitous. For me to order, the number of blood tests that we do on a weekly basis, and if I see someone with a high or a normal, um, if I see a 500 level, if I see a 500 level, a 600 level is extremely rare. Most of them are 400 in everyone. 80%, 90% of them are in that 3 to 400 range, or lower. And it shouldn't be that way.
No.
It should not be that way. But I think we're really snowballing. I think our Instagram page is helping. I'm getting, this guy today, he was a follower on Instagram, and he got through us that way. And it's good that we're reaching these guys. It's good that they're seeing the mess, they're hearing the message, and it is a lot of repetition. We talk about the same things, but it's not rocket surgery in a lot of ways. I mean, there's
No,
certain
but
things you
there's so
gotta.
much to talk about in men's health, and to have a place that's just for men, I
Right.
think is huge
Hmm.
because a lot of times longevity is women, right? And women deal with different things than men. And then some doctors, especially PCPs, okay, the men are lazy. They're not really following. They don't go to the doctor. They don't take care of themselves. So who cares? And then we're not the outlier. We're the ones that let's push aside, give them a pill. We'll talk to you next week,
Yeah.
next six in a year. And
Right.
maybe you'll go ahead and start working out. Maybe you'll do specific things. But when you're talking to men, it's much different than treating women.
Hmm.
And I think that's the power of having an all men's clinic.
Yeah. But also a clinic that focuses on wellness.
Right.
When I spoke to this guy about everything, I spoke to him about, he's calling about testosterone. He knows what he wants. We established the fact, but, we talked about his belly fat. We talked about mental health. And, you know, it's a huge difference between mental health and mental wellness,
Right.
mental illness. You don't have a mental illness. You're just not mentally well. Your heart's, but your whole body is not well. If your brain is not well, and this guy was, he gets up at 4 in the morning to work. Um, and he goes, I go to bed about 8 o'clock, which is fine. He goes,
Yeah.
I'm ready at that point, 8, 9 o'clock. I'm going to bed, but then I'm waking up at 1 or 2. I'm staying up till 3, and I got to be up for good at 4. Um, and it's so his, but also his, the thing we haven't talked a lot about is cortisol. When you're in constant stress mode, when you're in constant survival mode, that's the flight or fight. Your body's, dumping out adrenaline, dumping out cortisone, that is, putting you on high alert. But you're living on high alert, your cortisol is high, that affects your belly fat. That's one thing that really contributes to belly fat is a high cortisol level. And you all see those guys, especially the truck drivers. This guy's a driver. Um, they're eating crappy food at truck stops and on the road, eating crappy food. They have a big belly. Sometimes the belly is hard as nail. It's like tapping on a wood table or something. That their belly, and they're like, Doc, see that? It's all muscle. Like, no, it's not muscle. You're pregnant with fat. Your muscle is covering up, a whole cache of fat in there that is killing you. So it's, you go to a doctor anymore, the current system, and, I have a foot on both sides. I still see patients in the traditional system, as well as the wellness clinic. And it's a different, when I'm in the office, when I'm in my standard practice, um, it's like whack-a-mole. What's your problem? Knee. You're hitting problems. You got a 15 minutes to address an issue, and they're like, Doc, can I see you for my shoulder too, and my hip and my back and my knee and my spleen? And you don't have time for that. The system doesn't allow me to sit and talk to patients about their wellness, about their total health, which is what it should be. But your physician appointment a lot of times has just become, one stop. That's all we can deal with. And who has time? You're working a busy job. How do you have time to go to a doctor? You know,
Right. That
it's very
that's
difficult.
my goal. The
So,
next doctor that just can concierge to my house. That's what I want.
Neil, you
See,
don't ask for much, do you?
no, I don't ask for much. You're gonna fly out, right? I'll get you at one point. The private jet. Come out in the private jet to treat me. That's
Ten
where
thousand dollars for a visit, Neil.
exactly. You know what?
How
Hey,
can you do? How can you do that? How can you run a practice if I'm flying to see you? All the wasted time and travel.
yeah,
Um, but the other thing I wanted to talk about, I think the testosterone, it's established. I don't think it's a question anymore. Men's testosterone level is dangerously low. It's affecting their total health. Period. End of story. Okay. The other thing I talked to him about is the weight loss product. You should consider that, Neil, because you're not really addressing your toxins. The oxidative stress, the free radicals, the poisons. You're taking a food that's not real food, and then you're breaking that down. So the byproducts of all these foods that we're eating are creating other problems. It's the metabolites the secondary metabolites of these chemicals that are also building up in our system. And, the byproducts are toxic. So, the protandem product that we have and the mind and body GLP, gets your cells functioning so that you're able to rid yourself of these toxins. You're forming your GLP again, which satisfies your hunger. It satisfies the pleasure centers of your brain so that you don't need to keep eating, keep drinking, keep using substances um, to feel something, to feel any emotion, any feeling of satisfaction. Um, and I said it's you can't just take any one thing. We're not here, a lot of our competitors, they're what I call testosterone mills. You're just pumping out testosterone, testosterone, testosterone. A lot of those clinics, they don't have a physician that's on duty either. They got PAs and nurse practitioners that are just, uh, you know, turning and burning, getting patients through, and it's testosterone, testosterone. It's the same solution for every problem. They're not addressing other issues. Um, and all those things are important, and our patients, if you don't hear about it today, you're going to hear about it tomorrow. The weight loss opportunities we have, and the male enhancement thing. It's, such a funny topic. Because yeah, it's a cosmetic thing for guys, and it's not something that they really function on. But we had a patient come back last week. He's about 6 weeks from his procedure, and he's stoked. He's like, "This is exactly what I was looking for." The recovery wasn't bad. He recovered well. It wasn't. He didn't have any issues with it. And he's pleased and he wants to come back for another one. So, it's additive. He's seen some results. He's got more girth. He's got, more confidence. And this is a guy who, I would not say he was small. He was above average in size. He just wanted that little extra size, the thickness, the little extra size and thickness. And, it's a great way to get what you want, um, that's permanent. It's a permanent procedure. He never has to do it again. So many of the fillers that they use, you have to keep doing it, the expense. So yeah, I think, like I said, we're really starting to click at the clinic. Our patient volume is increasing, and I enjoy it. I had another. I think the patients, when I tell stories about the patients, and I've mentioned this guy before. This guy's in his early 80s. I think he's 82 or so.
Yeah.
Owns a boat
Mhm.
manufacturing, and he's still going to work every day. Um, he comes in and he wants to be on, he had spine surgery, and he's not gaining the muscle, he's not gaining the strength.
Right.
So he's slow on that, and we're going to put him on some peptides, to help build some of his muscle. Um, he's very, very healthy. His wife is involved. He's one of these, these sailor guys. He's just, grumpy old guy. But he's working on a hydrofoil. I mean, the guy is, he's got a vehicle now that can take off in up to take off from the water in up to 4 foot swells. So and he's working on drones. He's
Mhm.
really an 80-year-old, like you talk about, these 80-year-olds who just he has no interest in retiring. His brain is still sharp.
Right.
His body is starting to fail him. I gave him a cortisone shot. Talk about this for full service care. He came in. He's got a bursitis in his hip, so I gave
Right.
him a cortisone shot in his hip. I got him on testosterone. I got him on weight loss, the Protandim products, not the weight loss. He doesn't need the
Yeah.
weight loss, but I've got him on the antioxidants.
The one that you
Um,
talked about with that one guy the one time, right?
Say it again.
Is that the product we talked about on the show or earlier
Yeah,
podcast?
I also did a thing with Jean Paul. Jean Paul is our office manager. He is down 30 pounds now
Mm-hmm.
in
That's
about
great.
4 months. And he doesn't, same as you, he says the same thing. He doesn't drink coffee anymore. He's sleeping. His dreams, Neil, the dream thing still amazes me. My father passed away about a month ago, and
Yeah.
I'm the new
Like it.
patriarch in the family, and I've been trying to keep everybody else healthy and happy and concerned. And I don't think I've fully processed it yet either.
I'm sure you
But
haven't.
yeah, but with one of the first things I noticed on the Protandim product was my dreams. I'm sleeping deeper. I
So this is a different product than you mentioned.
No, it's the Protandim. Usually we do a Protandim and a GLP-1 product. Remember we had Jeff Picarillo on?
Yeah, yeah. So it's the product from them,
Yeah.
from Jeff.
But
Okay.
we stack it. You can either do the Protandim on its own or in association with the GLP. Um, but it really helped me with my dreaming. Like my dreams were much more vivid. I was remembering my dreams. And last Friday, a week ago, my father he was busy. He was busy haunting me in my dreams. Like he showed up 3 times in 3 different dreams, and I remember them all. Um, and the one was really impactful to me. Like I woke up and I was touched by it because, my father was unhealthy for the longest time.
Right.
He had a tumor on his head. He had COPD. He was on constant oxygen. Just looked horrible. His eyes were, and it's not how you want to remember him. But anyways, in my dream, I lost a suitcase. I was in a hotel and I like, where did my suitcase go? So I go down to the desk and the guy's like, oh, we have it in the back room. So now I'm following this guy to go find my suitcase. And my father pops out from behind an elevator and he looked absolutely beautiful. He was young again. He was probably, he looked like he would have been in his 40s maybe. Still had his jet black hair. He had the little 50s, Elvis style with even had the sideburns and everything. But, he came out and he looked like that and he was healthy. And, my father was a blue collar, regular guy. He hated getting dressed up to go anywhere. And he's wearing a purple sport coat of all things. My father would never wear a purple, but he looked beautiful. And I told my mother and sister, and they're like, Jack, purple? I said, yeah, Ma, but purple's the color of royalty. It's the color of, purple is a lot of
Right.
significance in the Catholic Church um, during Advent and Lent and rebirth. And I don't know if that had anything to do with the dream, but it's nice to be able to remember those things. When you're sleeping just isn't, it's not wasting time. I mean, you're regenerating, refurbishing, realigning everything in your body, detoxifying, you're fasting. Sleep is a very restorative period and an activity that's necessary. And, back to the first patient we were talking about, the 37-year-old, the guy's not sleeping. He's not sleeping well, so he's chronically fatigued. He said the same thing. He goes, I can't tell you the last time I remembered my dreams. And I'm remembering my dreams all the time. I've got very vivid dreams now. And I think that's a good thing. Once again, that's a sign of wellness. If you're sleeping and you're dreaming and you're waking up
Yes.
rested, that's healthy.
Yeah.
But no one's, you're not going to talk about that with your physician. I'm
No.
sleeping well,
No,
you're not.
they're gonna refer you to a sleep person. All
Right.
right, so basically, great conversation today. They can go theultimatemensclinic.com. It's in New Bedford, Massachusetts. But if you're definitely interested in testosterone or some of the other stuff, you do treat the people online as well. You could
Hmm.
do consultations for testosterone or other types of things, and then you come out to the clinic and come visit you at once or twice a year, depending. You know
Right. Most guys,
exactly.
like I said, I talk to a lot of my patients more on the phone than I do. They come in for their visit, they fill out their questionnaires and whatnot, and we keep track of all that. But you don't have to keep coming back and just for another charge, for an office charge,
Exactly.
which is
Yeah.
what most
That's
doctors
most
show up
do.
so that we can charge you again. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
but our patients are our patients, and it all works out.
All right. Well, thanks again, Dr. Jack. It was a great conversation. Look forward to the conversation next time. That was the special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Ultimate Men's Movement. Guys, take care.
Thanks, man.
All right. 1 second.